This episode of Intelligent Medicine is brought to you by Biomega Fish Oil from Biotics Research. For over 40 years, Biotics Research has been providing the highest quality supplements, surpassing industry standards. Biomega Fish Oil contains therapeutic doses of vital omega-3s in the triglyceride form, which is highly bioavailable. Biotics Research ensures maximum purity and freshness by managing their fish oils from catch to capsule, verified by rigorous independent testing. For more information, go to drhoffman.com/bioticsresearch. That's drhoffman.com/bioticsresearch for Biomega Fish Oil. Welcome to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. It's our weekly Q&A with Layla, wherein we answer your questions. Radio program at AOL.com is the destination for questions. And with me today, Layla Mutin, who is our nutritionist in residence. Happy Nutrition Month.
Yeah.
And happy Women's History Month.
Yes.
And in commemoration of that, and you saw the article, I wrote an article about...
Yes, what a great article, Dr. Hoffman. Yeah. That's really, wow.
I'm sorry not to...
That was an education for me.
I'm sorry not to have included you in the annals of... Oh, but, you know, you either have to be very old or dead to be in that article. So, you know, be happy that you're not included.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
but
yeah.
you know, you are certainly among the cadre of distinguished women
thank you.
nutritionists and a nutrition pioneer and a bit of an iconoclast because I think you took the training, but you took the training a little skeptically, and then you branched out to learn more.
Yeah.
You know, having worked with Dr. Robert Atkins, and then subsequently we've been working together for what I don't even know how long.
Since 2005, October.
Ooh. Oh,
wow.
Nigh on 2 decades.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a very successful collaboration, I might add.
Yes.
Before we get to questions, radio program at AOL.com is the destination for questions. I'm happy to see we have a pretty full mailbox.
Yeah. Keep them coming.
And, there's a really interesting article. It's actually a executive report in at worldobesity.org. Now, they've been banging the drum about the toll of obesity worldwide. It's an international organization of scientists and researchers for decades. And actually, you know, it's a funny month because it seems like it's like every day that there could possibly be, you know, International Women's Day and all this. Everything is this month for some reason.
Yeah.
It was World Obesity Day this month. I think it was March 4th. And in commemoration of that, they issued a report which was entitled COVID-19 and Obesity. And what they came up with is some startling statistics that, it's beautifully done. It's an executive summary at worldobesityday.org, and it's accompanied by beautiful graphics. And what they astonishingly report is of the 2.5 million COVID-19 deaths reported by the end of February 2021, 2.2 million were in countries where more than half the population is classified as overweight.
Wow.
So, it's the U.S., UK, certain countries in Europe, Kuwait, which is kind of an outlier in the Middle East, very prosperous country where people can now, in a mere couple of generations.
Prosperous people get fat.
Yeah, in a mere couple of generations. I mean, they actually have a report from Riyadh, which is in Saudi Arabia, an adjacent country, where they looked at the incidence of gallbladder surgeries in the early 1900s. And it was virtually non-existent because nobody could afford to eat the kind of food that gives you gallstones. Now it's one of the most prevalent surgeries in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
It's in countries like Kuwait, there's almost universal affluence because of oil money. So these countries have been transformed. Ergo, now what they're talking about here is obesity is a key risk factor that outranks age in terms of the likelihood of dying or getting very sick from COVID, and is accompanied by hypertension and prediabetes, insulin resistance. You don't even have to have diabetes to have a higher risk of COVID, and inflammation. So anyway, so this is a real call to action. That we need to, even in the post-COVID era, because let's say we vanquish COVID, we're still going to be left with the risk factors that predispose us to disease at a rate much higher. Than
the chronic diseases are still there. And people are dying from them.
And while hundreds of thousands have tragically died from COVID in this country, millions die each year of essentially preventable diseases. Now, we're all going to go, but, losing years of productivity and life. This week, I'm 68 and I'm a high school class of 69. I just read in my, we have like a Facebook page. 3 of my high school classmates died this year already.
Oh, no.
And not, I don't know that any of them died of COVID, but 2 of them were on our championship high school football team. So these were superb athletes.
Wow.
And they're dead.
Well, wait, did they die of not natural cause, but did they have a car crash or,
No, they died of
health
diseases.
Issues?
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah. They didn't die, after, a victorious football game in a pep rally, after driving drunk down,
nothing like
Wilshire Boulevard in Southern California. They,
That's terrible.
So, anyway.
That's terrible. Yeah, it makes you kind of feel your mortality.
All too young.
Right.
Yes. Right. So, apropos of mortality, let's get right into questions.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Speaking of mortality, okay. Here's a question about the vaccine. Hi, Dr. Hoffman. Would anything useful be learned about the effectiveness of the vaccine by having a COVID antibody test after being vaccinated? That's from Dennis.
That's a very good question, and the answer is it's actually being studied because you might think that taking a vaccine would reliably produce antibodies, as it does with many other things. For example, they sometimes determine if someone needs a rubella booster shot by looking at antibodies, measuring antibodies. But with the types of vaccines that are being offered, they offer antibodies to the spike protein of the virus, not the entire viriome, not the entire DNA the RNA of the virus. It's an RNA virus.
But to the spike protein.
But to the spike protein. So what we're seeing is that many people are showing antibodies, but it's not a reliable measure of the efficacy of the vaccines. There are other more subtle tests, looking at neutralizing antibodies, and then of course there's also that's on the B cell side of the immune system. On the T cell side of the immune system, it's even more subtle. There is no single reliable test to tell you that your vaccine has taken, so to speak.
I see.
But it appears that younger, healthier people have a more robust immune response to the vaccine and hence may be more protected. Whereas, which is traditionally seen with vaccines. A lot of vaccines work less well for the elderly and people who have what's called immunosenescence. That's why the flu vaccine that's offered to the elderly is
not great.
4 times stronger.
So you in an effort to for them to respond better.
So the ordinary one is moderately. If it were, if you were to give a young healthy person the vaccine designated for the older people, I think it's called Fluzone, it might cause them to feel sick. Have like a real red arm and a lot of problems.
Okay.
Of greater concern is the seeming trend towards decreased efficacy of the vaccines with the variants.
Right.
And so...
Well, isn't that the same? We can make the same analogy with the flu.
Yes.
Because it changes from year to year. So the vaccine you're getting is from last year's flu, hence only maybe 40 to 60% effective. Isn't that the same thing because of the variants?
It's the same concept. We don't know from vaccine to vaccine, which is going to, in fall or winter of 2021, whether one or another of the vaccines will become less efficacious because of the viral natural selection. And actually, I wrote about this, because people say, well, get the vaccine now because we need to wipe out COVID, and so, but one could also argue, I mean, I'm not saying this is the case, but, just #science, there is what's called selection pressure. If we apply a lot of selection pressure with vaccines to the coronavirus, it may accelerate its rate of mutation to evade the protection that the vaccine confers.
Because remember, Mother Nature wants all living things to live.
Yes.
Although a virus isn't technically a living thing. But it needs a host.
Vaccine lives matter.
Vaccine lives So because of this interference, it could actually be causing the mutation. You also said something very interesting last week. I feel like I'm interviewing you, sorry. But you talked about because we intervened as a population via wearing a mask, social distancing, locking down, staying home, it caused the virus to change and mutate so that it could live.
Right.
Since it was going to die,
One could argue that they say that certain strains of the vaccine are more contagious. Not necessarily, they don't make you sicker, but they're more contagious, and that may be...
They're more spreadable.
In an effort to get past some of the speed bumps that we've interposed in its path.
Of course it would make itself more contagious in order to ensure that it continues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what nature intends.
Yeah. Right. And we're in competition with the vaccine.
So that's the difference then between what everybody else did versus Sweden.
Right. Well, I think Sweden's a controversial experiment because depending on which political spectrum you look at, Sweden was a disaster, or Sweden was a resounding success. And I think the answer lies somewhere in between. Because they're the lockdown vigilantes who want to make the Swedish experiment seem utterly irresponsible and immoral. Yeah. And there are other people who are looking at it more from the standpoint of, let's get it over with. Let's develop some herd immunity among the healthy populace.
Yes.
We're less likely to die from this.
Right.
What
everybody else can stay home.
Here's another wrinkle, though, is
want.
that there's more to it than are you going to live or die, or are you going to end up on a ventilator? I am very concerned about the high percentage of people who have long COVID. And people of long COVID, it's not necessarily a merit system. Just like as with post-Lyme disease and with people who have chronic fatigue syndrome, there appears to be a significant percentage of people, many of them young and ostensibly healthy, who have long-term symptoms. And that's why, I don't dread getting COVID. I haven't had it, but I don't dread getting COVID so much because I think I'm going to die or because I think I'm going to end up in the hospital. But I dread the long-term sequelae because it's a little like Russian roulette with that, I think. Mm-hmm. You can't foresee who is going to be more likely to get that. Like just some people get a tick bite, they get their antibiotics.
Yes.
I say antibiotics.
The
antibiotics.
Yes.
And they're like, yay, I feel awesome. And then there are other people who, they take the antibiotics and they have long-term sequelae as if the Borrelia is resistant to the antibiotics, which to some extent it is, but also they may have some immunological reaction to Lyme, which renders them feeling sick and inflamed and, with a cytokine kind of mediated malaise. Mm-hmm. And there's actually been some calls for, this is actually good for the chronic fatigue syndrome community. They're actually hailing this because they say, how how much money are we spending on breast cancer, on heart disease, on COVID, but people with chronic fatigue syndrome, which is probably not going to kill you, but is very debilitating.
Sure.
But they allocate a few $1 million to research on that,
Mm-hmm.
not billions of dollars of research, and there's no formal treatment for that.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
the long COVID people
Mm-hmm.
having a fairly large number of people with inexplicable long-term symptoms will prompt more research into what happens after you've been challenged with a virus or some insult that causes your body to go into a kind of like a broken record response.
Yeah. In a chronic loop.
Anybody knows what a broken record is? I don't think I can use that
Yeah.
metaphor anymore.
Or a loop.
Right.
Just a taped loop
Mm-hmm.
of that particular thing.
I hated when my records used to get scratched and then they would be like, repeat.
But what percentage of people are having or complaining of long haulers? And I have to wonder how much of that has to do with their other comorbidities.
And we may discover them, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not the typical comorbidities. They're not the ones that make people die of COVID. They're not. It's not as simple as saying
It's not
you have
overweight,
hypertension.
diabetes,
It
hypertension.
could be to some extent.
Yeah.
But there are other people who seem ostensibly healthy, and it may be genetic.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that they have some already pre-existing autoimmunity, or some weakness or vulnerability. But it's not been. It needs to be studied. It needs to be studied.
Yeah.
I wish some of the money that's being poured into the COVID vaccines and medications. By the way, a couple of new medications that are being touted.
Uh-huh.
This big thing on 60 Minutes, and I was going to report on it last week, but I didn't get around to it. A drug that I rarely ever use, Luvox, fluvoxamine, which is used for people with really bad OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, like frequent hand washing and
Is it an
rituals.
antidepressant? Is that its classification?
Well, it's an antidepressant, but it's like very heavy duty. And,
Okay.
You don't want to use it for your run-of-the-mill mildly depressed person.
You're right.
But for OCD, it's somewhat helpful. But it turns out, it's very interesting about drugs, is they have properties that are off-target properties.
Yeah.
And it turns out that, at least in preliminary study, it may turn out to be a hydroxychloroquine,
Right.
Ivermectin was very popular, for a while. Recent study shows that it's not that helpful.
Yeah.
But I can't dismiss its possible efficacy. Here's a drug that's used for, parasites and for your river blindness in subtropical Africa.
Wow.
Well, it's not just antiviral, but it may do something to the immune system. Then there's a new one, and I think it's something, the name is moltenavir or something, and that...
Another antiviral.
It's a specific antiviral, and it shows very high efficacy against COVID. Mm-hmm. So the solution to COVID may come partially from vaccination, partially from, the measures we take to separate ourselves and da-da-da-da-da, but partially from effective treatment.
Yeah.
If this could be like, they analogize this to Tamiflu for the flu, but that's not a very good analogy because Tamiflu doesn't work very well for the flu.
And the side effects can be horrendous.
Side effects can be horrendous, and you have to take it right away.
Yeah.
And there's a very short window of efficacy for Tamiflu. Mm-hmm. You've got to take it right at the beginning, and usually by the time people call, get a prescription, so it kind of argues for stockpiling Tamiflu. Mm-hmm. But now the flu has mutated to become somewhat resistant to Tamiflu. So anyway, these antivirals show promise. Mm-hmm. We got some things in our arsenal there. That's it's a moving target. Every week we have a different prospects for this. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the weather's getting nicer.
Yeah.
People are chomping at the bit. I think there will be a thaw.
Yeah.
And more people will go out and about. And, we may have some more cases, but I think that this is a good trend because the cases, if we can protect the people who are at most at risk, then the cases will be mild and will continue to promote herd immunity.
Right. Very good. Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
The herd immunity part sounds
Yep.
like a plan. Oh my gosh. All right. So thank you, Dennis, for that. And I know we went off on tangents. That was
That's
good.
what we do.
That's what we do, right. This is from Mark. Hi, Dr. Hoffman and Layla. I'm a very long-time listener, probably since the first health talk at 10 p.m. Wow.
Takes us back.
Yeah. Recently, I had a small
I used
patch.
to be on before Joy Brown,
Oh, really?
the psychologist. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Late night radio.
I remember, yeah. Recently, I had a small patch of basal cell carcinoma removed from the back of my ear. I'm a fairly dark-skinned Italian. I'm a 59-year-old male. Dermatologists always told me I wouldn't have to worry about skin cancer because of my skin pigment. Our melanin is supposed to protect us, but...
Right.
This,
So I wish I got a plug for every, African American, with dark pigment who has skin cancer. I mean, it doesn't exempt you from it, but it is somewhat protective.
Yeah.
So it's a little cavalier to say, you're swarthy Italian individual and you're not going to get anything. Less likely, but
yeah. The spot that was removed was not even exposed to any sun, and I don't get any excess of sun. The dermatologist told me it wouldn't recur and that it was not due to sun exposure. The basal cell.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, I assume it was from my immune system. I'm a healthy person. I follow a strict eating plan, including the exclusion of carbohydrates except vegetables, of course. They're the good ones. I'm taking EGCG, resveratrol, quercetin. Can you recommend others that might help me prevent any additional?
File this under health is not a merit system entirely. Is that sometimes as you get older, mutations occur and, things arise.
Yeah.
And there's so many other things that we can't control in our environments.
Yeah.
So, I can't pinpoint why he got this. So what are some of the things?
One of the things is oral nicotinamide.
Ordinary vitamin B3.
Right.
You know,
Prevents common skin cancers in high-risk patients. It can reduce costs. The pill, the vitamin B3 supplement called nicotinamide, cut the rate of new squamous cell and basal cell skin cancers by 23%.
Okay.
Compared with a placebo.
So it's not
after a year.
Like a unassailable bulwark against all manner of skin cancer, but that reduces the rate. Mm-hmm. And we apply it to patients who have had multiple. They just keep going to the dermatologist, and they keep lasering and freezing and cutting and mosing.
That Mohs thing.
And it's almost like barnacles on a ship that they have to keep going in all the time.
Going in all the time.
Scrapings.
And removing, exactly.
But we give them that, and, is it 100%? No, but it is somewhat protective. And then, is he taking EGCG?
He's taking EGCG, he's taking quercetin, resveratrol. Mm-hmm. Yeah. These are all good.
Some of the right things.
Apparently he's a good eater.
Yeah.
I mean, what else can we think of? The first thing that comes to mind anymore, since this whole pandemic, is toxic exposures. Mm-hmm. More than anything. What are you using? What's in your soap? What's in your shampoo? What's in your personal grooming stuff? I know it's behind your ear, but you wash there too. Mm-hmm. What else is in your environment that may be, causing a cancer to happen? That type of a thing. So, I don't know.
But, at the most, and this is actually very mainstream now, the nicotinamide or niacinamide, vitamin B3. It's cheap. Yeah. And the dosage generally used is about 1,500 per day, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, which you might say, well, isn't that going to affect my liver? Isn't that going to cause me to have flushing? This is the non-flushing.
It's not niacin.
Type of B3. It's not niacin.
It's like the metabolite of or part of its matrix or, Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Mark, you're doing all the right things. Good thing it's a basal cell, not a melanoma. Wow.
Yeah. Basal cells are manageable early, and
exactly.
I have to confess, I'm not a big doctor goer, but I do check in with my dermatologist. On an annual basis. Mm-hmm. This year, I got the call to go in, and I kind of blew it off during the pandemic, which is not good. But more and more people I think are going to do that. And I think doctors are going to see people coming in saying, "Oh, why didn't you come in sooner? I could have.
Yeah.
Now I have to cut really deeply around
Yes.
this. It's grown. Well, I was reluctant to come in because of the pandemic. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. We have.
All right. Give us a preview of what we're going to.
Oh my goodness. What can we do about preemphysema? My friend was diagnosed with preemphysema.
Okay, we'll tackle that in part 2. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman today with Layla Mutin. It's our weekly Q&A with Layla radio program at AOL.com, the destination for questions. We'll be right back.